This tale is about urban warfare and why avoiding it is a Russian strategy in Ukraine. Ancient Chinese military strategist Sun Tzu warned, quote, "The worst policy is to attack cities. Attack cities only when there is no alternative. The general, unable to control his impatience, will order his troops to swarm up the wall like ants, with the result that 1/3 of them will be killed without taking the city. Such is the calamity of attacking cities." Roughly 4 billion people live in cities. Cities can become forts with an endless series of city block walls that provide defense in death. Rather than fight a powerful modern army on the field of battle, opponents may choose to fight man-to-man in cities. If large numbers of civilians remain in a city, using heavy firepower becomes a political matter and creates huge mounds of rubble, passable only by foot infantrymen. Damage to religious and historical structures are another concern. Aircraft have trouble locating targets in cities, and their angle of attack is often limited. The long range of tank guns is no advantage on city streets, and they can't fire upwards at tall buildings. Tanks have little maneuver space and are vulnerable to ambushes by shoulder-fired rockets from above or behind, as the Russian army was reminded when it tried to storm the small city of Bucha with tanks in 2022. Urban warfare was a major issue in World War II and avoided. The mighty German army was never able to take Leningrad. Germany's 1942 offensive to finish off the Soviets stalled when it reached the key city of Stalingrad. It had a population of 1/2 million, which would just be a minor city in the modern era. The Germans had more soldiers who were highly trained, better equipped, and had superior firepower. Stalin made the defense of Stalingrad his top priority, and Soviet soldiers held off the Germans for 6 months, which disrupted their entire offensive. The Germans captured 90% of the city until a Soviet counteroffensive cut them off and forced their surrender. One of the bloodiest battles in the Pacific Theater occurred when American soldiers attacked a few thousand Japanese troops in Manila. Fortunately, Japanese army units had withdrawn to defend from the mountains east of the city, but Navy personnel remained and fought hard. The bloody Battle of Manila destroyed much of the city and was unnecessary, as was the entire Philippine campaign. President Franklin Roosevelt's decision to back General Douglas MacArthur's vain idea to retake the Philippines before Japan was the worst Allied decision in World War II, so is never discussed. See the tale linked in the description, The Disastrous Liberation of the Philippines. In Europe, the U.S. Army wisely avoided the heavily populated and industrialized Ruhr region while invading Germany in 1945. American forces bypassed and surrounded what they called the Ruhr Pocket. The German city of Aachen had a population of just 165,000. It was in a key location, so U.S. Army generals decided it should be taken. This controversial decision required an urban assault by 100,000 American soldiers, who suffered 7,000 casualties over 5 weeks to defeat just 18,000 Germans. In later wars, the bloodiest American battles occurred in urban Hue City, Vietnam in 1968, and Fallujah, Iraq in 2004. The urban warfare problem has become much worse. Cities have more than doubled in size since World War II, while massive high-rise buildings are common. How does one clear out a 50-story building, especially with other huge buildings nearby? The logical plan is to lay siege by encircling the city to cut off supplies and hope for a surrender. Russia tried this strategy in Ukraine when it seized Mariupol in 2022, but fanatical Azov soldiers refused to surrender. The city had over 400,000 residents in 2022, along with large factories. It took the Russians almost 3 months to clear the city, resulting in over 2,000 civilian deaths, and destroyed most of the city in the process. The Western media had a grand time featuring the evil deeds of Russia, while Russian media presented a different story.
When the Ukrainian military conflict began in February of 2022, Mariupol became the first battleground between the advancing Russian forces and the Kiev's nationalists who entrenched in the city, literally taking its residents hostage and using them as human shields. Members of the notorious Azov regiment would not allow civilians to evacuate and set up firing positions in residential buildings. When they were eventually pushed back to the Azovstal industrial plant, the humanitarian catastrophe became evident as the city of Mariupol lay in ruins. Right now, it's become a huge construction site with entirely brand new neighborhoods.
Sun Tzu wrote that a city should never be completely surrounded. A narrow escape route must remain open to encourage defenders to flee. They will be forced to leave behind their heavy weapons, ammunition stockpiles, and will be easier to kill after they leave a fortified city. The Russian army adopted this strategy when attacking other cities in Ukraine with great success, especially since most fanatical Ukrainian soldiers have perished. American and British propagandists claim the Russians are incompetent because they haven't seized Kiev or other major cities. But that was never an objective, since urban warfare is slow, bloody, and very destructive to civilians and infrastructure. The Russians set up a long frontline killing field in eastern Ukraine, lined with artillery supplied via rail directly from factories. Ukraine sends its soldiers into these killing fields daily, and the Russians kill thousands each week. The Russians advance slowly, like pheasant hunters, to force hidden soldiers to reveal themselves, then blast them with artillery and drones, resulting in a 5-to-1 kill ratio. Russia will not attack large cities, since this is bloody, and Russia would have to rebuild them once this war is won. Russian forces will keep grinding forward in rural areas to decimate and demoralize the Ukrainian army.